And this one's a card combat game that does use card crafting in order to create a randomly generated deck. And the way that this works is that you're going to have two different types of cards. There are trait cards and there's character cards. You're going to be shuffling these up individually and then taking a card from each and combining them into a sleeve. One of the cards is transparent, which means that the elements of the two cards will be combined into a unique card, and this is going to create randomly generated names, costs, endgame victory points, banners, as well as different combinations of abilities. And I think there are over 80 cards offered in this game, so doing this every single game can be quite a lot of work, so they do have a mechanism to make this a little bit easier. And you're not going to be shuffling up all the cards at the start of every game that you play, but you will be dealing 4 cards to each player, and then they'll be disassembling them, then you'll just shuffle those back up and each player will reassemble their new cards. This will allow you to have a continually changing deck game after game without a whole lot of overhead. The way that the game's set up is that you're going to be dealing 5 of these constructed cards to each player as their starting hand, and then you're going to be putting a bunch of these point tiles in the middle of the table, each requiring a different amount of resources in order to acquire that tile, with each of those tiles granting you with a certain amount of victory points. This is a game where players are just going to be taking turns performing one of 4 possible actions, and I'm going to start with explaining some of the more simple actions first, because you can spend a turn to either gain 1 influence of any type or simply gain 10 money. These could be good actions if you have nothing better to do, but normally you're going to want to do one of the other actions. And the other 2 options that you have is to discard as many cards as you like from your hand in order to draw that same amount plus 2. But the best action you can perform is to pay the cost to place any one card from your hand into a 4x4 tableau in front of you. You're always going to be placing your cards orthogonally adjacent to existing cards, and there are different abilities that could trigger when you do place that new card. Some of these could be instant free abilities, while others may require you to pay additional costs, or they may require you to meet certain conditions like placing it next to a particular card or having certain icons or banners in your tableau already. Some of these cards could also have some different requirements that could score you additional victory points at the end of the game if you do meet the requirements of them, but if there are victory points outlined on that card, you'll just gain those instantly for having played that card. You do have a limit of 8 cards, 8 resources of any type, and 80 money, so if you do have more than that at the end of your turn, you're going to be discarding down to those numbers, so you really do want to try and spend that money and resources when you are able to. It's also important to note that you can also purchase 1 tile as an additional action during your turn, so if you do have the resources to do that, you might want to, because most of these tiles of the same region type do have the same cost, but if you are able to purchase it sooner, you can choose the tile that grants more victory points. The end of the game is going to be triggered as soon as a single player reaches a full tableau of cards, and then all the players are going to be adding up their victory points that are visible on the cards in their tableau, as well as adding any additional victory points for any objectives that they were able to complete that might be outlined on those cards. You're also going to be gaining victory points from the different region tiles that you were able to purchase and from any money that you do have left over. The player with the most victory points at that time wins the game, and if you do want to check this one out, I will have it linked down below.